It's my great honor to be here, and I also graduated from Zhejiang University. I was in medical school and I switched to industrial design. I did my undergrad there, so it's great honor to virtually be back. Um, as Guan Yu mentioned, I'm the director of Morphing Matter Lab at Carnegie Mellon University. And we sit at the intersection of smart materials and also a computational model of those materials, and also think about how to manufacture them. So I'll play a quick video to kind of quickly introduce what our lab does. As I mentioned, it's called Morphing Material Lab, Morphing Matter Lab. It means we develop shape-changing and transformative materials for, broadly speaking, different products, different robots. And what you see here, for example, we can make all kinds of materials morph and dance. Either they are robotic grippers or a simple paper toy or a wearable fabric that can respond to your sweat and body heat, or food. Food can even dance when you cook them or during the consuming process. So it does mean we're touching a little bit of everything, like I mentioned, all the way from material to computer programming to even fashion design and bioengineering. So I have a very interdisciplinary research team. So there are, working material scientists and fashion designer working side by side, or a mechanical engineer and a computer scientist working side by side. So in general, we learn from each other and try to bring different aspects of a project from both science to art. In summary, so in the lab, we develop we conduct the scientific studies related to shape-changing materials, and we also try to develop the computational platform and also manufacturing strategy. That's more the engineering aspects, and also we try to develop applications to push the societal impact of these morphing materials. And talking about societal impact, our new hobby is to talk about how morphing matter can help with the environmental challenges the whole world is facing nowadays. And this is a picture of Seattle. As you guys know, in the States, in America, there's a lot of mountain fires everywhere, especially in California and also the state of Washington. It really encouraged us to think about this idea of, how morphing matter or how design in general can solve environmental challenge. It's actually from our perspective, we think it is the fact that we can rethink the way we can co-live with nature will solve this bigger issue, maybe, hopefully. So how can we rethink the way we co-live with nature? Maybe we can start by learning from nature. And that brings us the question, how does nature create green and intelligent machines without using any battery or any, non-reusable resources or energy? So I grew up from Inner Mongolia. So when I go into the forest to pick up mushrooms, I will also get to pick up pine cone. So if you think about pine cone, it's actually a smart material because the scale, the pine cone scale, when you pick it up when it's wet, they are all closed, but when they dries, all the scale will open. But magical thing is, as a kid, if I place the already dried pine cone into the water again, all the scales will close up. So it turns out the scale is a smart material. It responds to the local moisture condition, basically, how much humidity in the environment, and automatically open and close on the fly. So this, by definition, is a smart, intelligent material. It's responsive. It sounds like I'm talking about robots, but it is true we are talking about a robotic behavior, but purely engineered by nature and also energy-wise driven by natural condition. In this case, is the moisture fluctuation in the environment. And this is an even smarter nature engineered material. So this is like a little desert seeds. When the rain comes, it will coil and uncoil. In this case, it's uncoiling its body and then drill into the ground. So for deserts, when the rain is very sparse, the plant wants to make sure it drill itself and seed itself into the ground only when there are enough moisture. So here it's not a material anymore, it's actually a smart machine, right? It seems like a hand drill, but it's purely, again, a responsive material, purely empowered and powered by nature. And for my PhD study, I've been looking into different kinds of intelligent materials that are derived and engineered by nature. And the transformation can go from very simple open and close to very much more complex ones. And also you can observe this phenomena at different scale, all the way from human scale material to nano scale, bacteria cell in that case. So this transformable materiality, this notion really exists widely in nature. And the question as a designer and engineer, I would ask myself is, how can I learn from this phenomenon and bring it to human creation? So I brought two projects. I know I only have 20 minutes, so I'll just kind of try to power this through. So I want to show you guys how some of the lessons we learned from nature is adapt to two specific scenario, food and fashion. So let's start with food. And food, actually, if we're talking about saving the environment, agriculture and food is actually one of the biggest area we wanted to focus on. And even we just talk about cooking wastes a lot of energy. And in Italy, for example, just purely cooking pasta pretty much consume 1% of the green gas emission in the whole nation. So how can you, for example, save the cooking time when you are boiling pasta every day? That seems like a design question, but it's non-trivial, even you think about saving the planet. So we learned, for example, from this morphing seed pod. When you introduce angled cellulose alignments into a stripe, it will spin if you give it moisture. So based on this principle, we developed this pasta product, or Asian noodle, if you will. Basically, by introducing those surface grooves on a single flat stripe, when you cook them, they will turn into a 3D shape. But when you pack them, they can be packed flat. So it is a morphing food concept. Similarly, right, before boiling, it could be straight, and after boiling, it can turn into a 3D shape. And again, you are seeing a lot more examples for before and after boiling. So the whole idea is when you pack them, they can be packed flat to save the packaging space. And also in that sense, right, saving the plastic that are used to pack those food. But when you cook them, they can all transform into 3D. And how it can transform can be programmed in the material structure. This is a robotic platform we developed in the lab to just produce these surface grooves that can induce the morphing. And this just shows how it works in a video. And again, I mentioned the design goal is to make flat pasta. But only when you cook them, the flat pasta will take on different 3D shapes. And in the video you are showing, we developed some numerical simulation model that fits very well with the actual experimental data. And this is a sped up video. It takes about 10 minutes to cook pasta. And you can see, yeah, when we drop the pasta into water, they were flat, right? And when you started to cook them, they can take on different 3D shapes. And so this is very interesting from a scientific research perspective as well, because food is actually a very sophisticated soft matter. So there are a lot of soft matter physics you have to study in order to control the behavior of the food morphing during the cooking process. And this was a video we shot for a hiking trip. Taoye, who is right now already a professor in Hangzhou, actually back then she was doing a postdoc at my lab. So she cooked some of this morphing pasta for herself during a hiking trip. So the idea is you can pack those flat food very easily in a very small package, but when you cook them, they can turn into 3D to give you the right texture. And again, because I'm speaking to majority Chinese audience, I want to make a point. For Italian, they're crazy about different 3D shapes of pasta because you're supposed to pair different sauce, whether tomato, seafood, or meatball with different shapes. So it's important to eat 3D shaped pasta. But then those 3D shapes waste a lot of packaging space. That was really the motivation behind why we work on this project. So we think this could be good for mountain hikers, right? Even in the future, space travel. Think about how precious the space is in a space shuttle when you talk about bring food up in the sky. And we can also push the complexity of the shape. We can morph, for example, a flat disc into a rose flower. And we can also apply those to cookie making. So you can make flat cookie during a baking process. You can have it self-transform into 3D. I was mostly motivated to make my mom self-folding dumplings because every time I go back to visit China, my mom would spend a lot of time making dumplings. I thought it would be super cool if one day she could just have her own dumplings self-fold. But you can also have self-wrapping tacos. In this case, is a Mexican food. Okay, so quickly move on to a second project. It's related to fashion, but again, we wanted to think about how to reuse and repurpose products for different scenarios so we can, again, hopefully save some energy and resources. Yeah, what you have just seen is a piece of fabric that responds to the wearer's body sweat, open up when you are sweatier and close down when your body become cool down again. It's a responsive fabric. And maybe you saw this one zoom in scene with a lot of bacteria looking things on the fabric. This bacteria is actually the secret ingredients here. It's called natto bacteria. And actually, the Chinese name is just called 枯草杆菌. I learned it when maybe in elementary school chemistry books. But anyway, so these were bacteria you could derive from dry rice stalk. And in Japan, it's actually a food, 就是纳豆. It's fermented soybean, and the bacteria that ferment this soybean is the bacteria actuator we are using here. So basically, we are looking into the hygromorphic transformation behavior of this bacteria. Basically, it responds to the moisture condition, open and close. And it even responds to the little microenvironment, basically the little moisture around your skin. So if you place this bacteria-coated film around your skin, it will automatically open up. And then we got this heat and sweat map from New Balance, who has been collaborating with us through this entire process. And we developed this running garment. So we worked with some ballet dancers to just show the function of this garment. So then the idea is you have a lot of those scales on the back. And when the wearer gets sweatier, like I mentioned, all the scales will open up. For example, at the beginning, her body was cool, like all the scales are closed. But if she gets sweatier, all the scales on the back of her body will open up. And this is just a closer shot of how the scale will open up when your body gets sweatier. And again, the whole idea is now you can just wear this one garment for different contexts and scenarios, right? In that case, save wearable materials. So as a conclusion, nature has taught us many possible ways to be smart and sustainable. And I talk about a few smart materials, right? Self-drilling seeds, open and closing pine cones, but I have not talked about many other smart things. For example, little flying machines or explosive effects in nature. All these very amazing, kind of even like shooting bullets, those kind of fast motion are triggered purely by sustainable energy and honestly the ambient environment around us. And I mentioned I came from Inner Mongolia as a nomadic region. By myself, I really admire how people living in those nomadic regions leverage resources. For example, this tent is made of goat hair, and this was heavily used in Jordan. So basically, when the summer comes, the goat hair made tent will function as a very beautiful ventilation. It bring the cold air all the way down to keep the living condition cool. However, when the rain comes, all the hairs will swell, and then this tent becomes completely waterproof. So it is a really good example of how you leverage natural transformative materials to do what you want. And also because it's goat hair, right? It's a portable factory because they also raise goat. And if the tent broke, you just get some hairs from your goat and then you can fix it. And it's completely environmental friendly in that sense. So to summarize, co-living with nature means not just exploiting nature for its resources, but also learn from nature and be respectful of nature with all the engineering and design talents here, right? So, okay, with that, I'll end my talk. And I don't know if I still have time to answer questions, but thank you for being with me.
Okay, Lining, thank you so much for your inspiring presentation. Though I heard a lot of, or I heard many times of your speech, I can still learn a lot of new knowledge, very fruitful. Okay, let's move to our Q&A session. I will pick two questions. As you can see, we have got a lot of questions. So for the first one, you have studied in Zhejiang University. I assume this question is about you have a design background, so how to get the new inspiration from nature or other disciplinaries, and how to be a very creative designer.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I'm just assuming the majority of the audience are really young here. I think you should believe in your potential and intellectual capacity to pick up new things. I was only 1 year through my medical school in Zhejiang University, so I really didn't learn much. So most of the biology and material science knowledge were picked up during my graduate school, actually at MIT. So I think you want to first of all, you want to ask yourself what you're truly interested in. If you are interested in interdisciplinary research and want to bring in more technology, whether that means computer science or material science, into your agenda, your own vision, I think you just need to, take more classes and try to push your projects in the direction you want. And at the early stage, you can also try to be more open-minded for collaboration. Actually, I learned so much more from my collaborators than from classes. If you work with the biologists, you naturally pick up the skills you needed in a wet lab when you handle bacteria, right? So I would say, yes, it's hard work to learn all this, but it's very possible for you guys to pick up whatever knowledge I described today.
Okay, thank you. So the second question, I think, is from a young researcher. So, so your mission is morphing matter. So as it today shows, you have a lot of great works to prove your mission. Morphing matter is super good. So for a young researcher, how to narrow, since as you can see, we have a lot of new ideas and we can create many interesting projects, but how to narrow down a new, very straightforward topic, and how to create a new topic or a new mission for like you?
It's always a try and error. On one hand, follow your gut instinct. For me, I never started with the idea that because I grew up in Inner Mongolia, I had a good friendship with pinecone, so I should study pinecone in my PhD, right? But somehow I think the circle is closed because there were some gut instinction of what I I was passionate about. But on the other hand, I think it could also go very logical. My advisor used to say, think about your research as a mountain. At the very bottom is the enabling technology you are interested in studying. And the middle layer is more like the applications, which context to which group of users you wanted to create the impact. And then on the very tip is actually the vision. So what is the very long-term vision? What do you believe in terms of the technology, in terms of the society? I think good projects should have all the three aspects somehow being well thought through before you put in energy. But once you made your mind, then you really have to put in a lot of effort and energy and determinations to make it happen, especially at the very early stage, right? When none of your collaborators see this being promising. It is you who have to push it to a point that it shows promise, and then all the other collaborators will start to join you and help you. So, but as an initiator, it's always hard.
Okay, great. Thank you so much again.